Global beverage giants are turning their attention to Canada after President Trump's tariffs shake up the industry landscape. Who's going to make the next move? Trump's decision to double United States tariffs on aluminum imports to 50% has set off, well, a chain reaction in the beverage industry. Coca-Cola's CEO has warned that these tariffs could hit the company with up to $200 million in extra annual costs. And honestly, the impact doesn't stop there. Canada, which supplies 44% of United States aluminum imports, is suddenly in the spotlight as a stable, reliable source. Now, industry giants like PepsiCo, Molson Coors, and Nestlé are quietly looking north. Canada offers what the United States just can't right now: trade security, cheaper aluminum, and a stable business climate. But Coca-Cola's move is only the start. So, why was Coca-Cola just the first domino? Coca-Cola's reaction really stands out because it signals just how exposed the beverage industry is to these tariffs. CEO James Quincey called the new 50% tariff a serious concern, and the company's internal estimates showed they could be facing $200 million in extra annual costs. That's a hit no company wants to take, especially when you're producing over 100 billion cans every year. Analysts say this is more than a one-off. It's a warning to every major player that the economics of making drinks in the United States just changed. The impact goes beyond just the price of aluminum. The beverage industry depends on a supply chain that's tightly wound, with contracts and sourcing locked in months ahead. When tariffs suddenly inject millions in new costs, companies are forced to rethink their entire strategy for North America. Analysts warn that aluminum prices in the United States spiked sharply after the 50% tariff, making Canadian supply hundreds of dollars per ton cheaper. For a company like Coca-Cola, that price gap adds up to a major competitive disadvantage almost overnight. There's a history here too. Back in 2018, earlier rounds of tariffs already cost United States manufacturers $1.5 billion over 2 years, according to the Aluminum Association. But this time, companies aren't waiting around to see if things get better. Coca-Cola is actively looking at Canadian production options, and that's a clear sign to the rest of the industry that these tariffs and the price hikes are here to stay. It's not just about temporary market shocks or short-term supply issues. The real problem is the long-term instability. Past administrations at least gave companies a predictable trade environment. Now, with tariffs that can appear or disappear at any time, companies are left in the dark. Under USMCA, aluminum from Canadian smelters can move tariff-free into United States plants, giving Canada predictable access companies just can't get in the States. That kind of stability is just as valuable as the price break. Industry analysts see Coca-Cola's move as the start of a larger trend. When a major company shifts its production, suppliers and logistics networks tend to follow. Canada already supplies the vast majority of America's imported aluminum, so moving bottling plants north means shorter supply lines and reliable tariff-free materials. The bigger story is that Coca-Cola's decision isn't just about escaping tariffs, it's about gaining a real advantage. And if Coca-Cola is making moves, you can bet other beverage giants are paying attention. The stage is set for more companies to follow, and the list of contenders is already taking shape. The silent exodus. So, who's packing up for Canada? PepsiCo is facing the same pressures as Coca-Cola, with the 50% tariff on imported aluminum squeezing margins across its massive product lineup. The company's leadership recently confirmed they're, evaluating all options in response to the new costs. With Pepsi, Mountain Dew, and Gatorade all relying on aluminum cans, every extra dollar spent on packaging has a direct impact on profits. Analysts say Canada stands out as a logical alternative, offering tariff-free access to aluminum and a stable trade relationship under the USMCA. For PepsiCo, expanding operations north of the border could be a pretty straightforward way to offset rising United States costs and keep products competitively priced. Beer producers are also under pressure. AB InBev, the parent company of Budweiser and Molson Coors, both have established Canadian operations and deep roots in the country. With United States aluminum prices climbing, these companies are positioned to take advantage of Canada's cheaper supply and predictable trade environment. Industry analysts expect major brewers to look at increasing their Canadian production for United States-bound products. The infrastructure is already there, and the cost savings from avoiding tariffs could be honestly pretty substantial. Nestlé, known for bottled water brands like Perrier and San Pellegrino, is also exploring its options. The company is reportedly looking at Canada as a hub for future production, motivated by the need to secure stable aluminum supplies and insulate its operations from United States trade policy swings. Nestlé's leadership has called Canada a strategic hub for their supply chain, and the company's interest in Canadian expansion reflects a broader trend among global beverage makers. Energy drink brands like Monster and Red Bull are feeling the squeeze as well, since nearly all their products use aluminum cans. With thin profit margins and high exposure to packaging costs, these companies are expected to make supply chain adjustments. Industry observers note that both brands already work with Canadian bottlers, so shifting more production north would be a practical move. For smaller craft beverage producers, the situation is even tighter. The Can Manufacturers Institute has warned that United States craft brewers face a serious price squeeze due to the tariffs, and many may now look to Canadian partners for packaging or production to stay afloat. Canadian craft brands, meanwhile, gain a new edge in the United States market thanks to lower aluminum costs. Across the board, companies with existing Canadian operations have a clear path to expand and capture these advantages. Even a modest shift north could save tens of millions of dollars each year, enough to make these moves not just likely, but necessary. And as companies weigh their options, Canada's aluminum sector is quickly becoming the focal point for anyone looking to secure a stable, cost-effective future in beverage production. Canada's aluminum advantage isn't just about geography, it's built into the structure of the industry. Canada supplies 44% of all aluminum imported by the United States, a figure that isn't just impressive but essential for American manufacturers. The United States simply can't produce enough aluminum domestically to meet demand, and even if idle smelters were restarted, the Aluminum Association says it would take years and heavy investment to close the gap. That's why United States manufacturers rely so much on Canadian aluminum, and why the new 50% tariff is such a game changer. The tariff doesn't apply to aluminum used and processed within Canada, which creates a direct cost advantage for any company willing to shift production north. When a beverage plant in Quebec sources aluminum from local smelters, it avoids the paperwork and the extra costs that now hit United States buyers. That's a difference of hundreds of dollars per metric ton. This isn't just a small margin, it's a structural price gap that makes Canadian production instantly more attractive for companies looking to protect profits. Energy is another piece of the puzzle. Quebec's aluminum industry is powered by cheap renewable hydroelectricity. This keeps production costs low and provides stable, predictable energy prices, something United States plants, often dependent on natural gas, can't guarantee. When companies look at long-term investments, that kind of price stability matters. It's not just about saving money today. It's about being able to plan for the next decade without worrying about energy price shocks. Canada's policymakers have positioned the country as a stable trade hub, emphasizing tariff exemptions under the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement and renewable energy incentives to attract beverage makers. The country's proximity to United States markets, combined with predictable trade policy, makes it a logical place for companies to expand. when Nestlé expanded its Ontario facility, industry watchers pointed to Canada's stability and reliable supply as key reasons. The government's Strategic Innovation Fund and provincial tax credits add more fuel to the fire, making the economics of moving production north even harder to ignore. All of this is showing up in the numbers. Canadian smelters are seeing more long-term contracts from beverage companies, and domestic aluminum sales are rising. The Aluminum Association and industry analysts have been warning for years that tariffs would push investment out of the United States and into Canada. Now that shift is underway, and it's not just about where cans are filled, it's about the entire structure of North American manufacturing. But the story doesn't end with supply chains and corporate strategy. The real impact is about to hit much closer to home, as jobs, local economies, and even the political landscape start to feel the pressure from this new trade reality. Canada's growing role as a production hub is starting to reshape the labor market and the politics around trade. The numbers from the last round of tariffs are hard to ignore. A Federal Reserve analysis found that the 2018 steel and aluminum protectionism caused net job losses, not gains. 75,000 United States manufacturing jobs lost over 2 years. The logic was simple. Higher input costs for manufacturers led to fewer jobs, not more. Now, with even steeper tariffs in place, the same pattern is unfolding. United States plants are facing higher costs and shrinking margins, while Canada's industry is positioned to gain. Trade policy stability is a big reason for that. Under the USMCA, Canadian aluminum moves tariff-free into the United States as long as it meets the agreement's requirements. That's not just a technical detail, it's a guarantee that lets companies plan for years, not just months. U.S. policy, on the other hand, keeps shifting with each administration, and that unpredictability is driving manufacturers to look for safer ground. Nestlé's recent expansion in Ontario came with a decade-long production commitment. That's the kind of long-term deal companies won't sign in the United States right now. Industry analysts expect that if the current shift continues, Canada's aluminum demand will rise sharply. That means more work for Canadian smelters, more jobs in logistics and packaging, and honestly, a stronger domestic supply chain. While it's hard to put an exact number on future job growth, the direction is clear. Canada stands to benefit as companies move to avoid tariffs and secure stable supply. Canada's government is making it even easier. Significant financial incentives are on the table for manufacturers relocating north, and officials are openly pitching the country as a no-surprises trade zone. Ontario's premier is using social media to invite U.S. manufacturers to make the move. The message is direct. If you want predictable rules and lower costs, Canada is open for business. The gap is already visible. U.S. manufacturers now pay significantly more for aluminum than their Canadian rivals. Companies like Molson Coors have already shifted production from the U.S. to Canada because of trade uncertainty, and their Canadian plants now serve both markets without the tariff problem. Suppliers are following, with packaging firms expanding Canadian operations to meet new demand. This isn't just a short-term response. It's the start of a new trade order in North America, one where Canada's stable policies and aluminum advantage are, kind of rewriting the map for beverage production. The tariffs were supposed to help U.S. industry, but the numbers and the decisions companies are making tell a different story. With 50% tariffs still in place, companies are now facing a clear choice: accept higher costs in the U.S. or move production north. Canada, with its stable trade policies and access to tariff-free aluminum, stands to gain as more beverage giants consider shifting their supply chains. PepsiCo, AB InBev, and Nestlé are all actively weighing Canadian expansion. These decisions are already influencing suppliers and logistics networks, and honestly, the effects are spreading through the industry. Who do you think will be the next to shift production north? Click the video on screen to learn more about Coca-Cola's next moves, and hit subscribe to stay updated.